Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gastric Mindset podcast. My name is Safi. I am 8 years post-op, a therapeutic practitioner with a focus on disordered eating pre- and post-bariatric surgery. On this podcast, my aim is to vanish crappy fad dieting and unhelpful thinking to reclaim our mindset with a little rewiring so we can stop yo-yo dieting and get off the roller coaster once and for all. Welcome to season 2 with a new name and a new look. I have some great guests lined up who are experts in this area and will provide us with some great tips to build our own toolkit. I am passionate about making psychological support accessible for long-term success, both physically and emotionally. Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode. Today I've got an exciting guest who's going to share with us her journey from bariatric surgery to what she's doing now. Nadia Marie, welcome to the Gastric Mindset podcast. Thank you for joining me. Could you tell us a little bit about you?
Oh, good morning everyone. So my name's Nadia Marie and I'm 2 years post surgery, so 2 years post bariatric surgery. Originally from Essex and now living up in beautiful Scotland.
Wow, amazing. Nadia, so, what was your journey like pre-bariatric surgery? What was your journey like with obesity?
So obesity I've struggled with. I don't mind admitting I'm now in my 50s. I'm 52.
You definitely don't look it.
Oh, thank you. So I would say I've had decades, that's for sure, of living with obesity, going on the whole yo-yo dieting, which I'm sure we've all been through. But it's completely controlled and taken over my life all these years. It kind of got up until, I would say my defining moment was 2021, the summer of 2021. I tried numerous dieting attempts. I mean, every day was a dieting day. And the whole issue around food, the dieting industry, the kind of, let me lose a few pounds, let me lose a few stone, and all that kind of mental space. I mean, it completely absorbed my life. But it got until 2021 when I had poor mobility and several health conditions, one of which was severe liver disease. It kind of got to that point and I just thought, I'm going to end up being in an early grave. And I was actually under a few consultants at the hospital, and my liver consultant did actually say, look, if you don't do something about your health, and it wasn't necessarily because of my weight, but obviously the weight didn't help because I was dealing with morbid obesity. But it kind of got to that point, and that was, I would say, my kind of wake up moment. Summer of 2021, or just before the summer of 2021, I thought I really am going to end up in an early grave. And I thought for me to kind of be thinking about that in my 50s, that really scared me. The mobility was a nightmare. I could barely shuffle, let alone walk. The several health conditions I had, obviously the liver disease, I was in and out of hospital. I lacked confidence. And even on the surface, even though on the surface, everyone thought, oh, she's a bubbly character, she's living life and all that, deep down, I wasn't at all. I mean, I literally was barely mobile, to be honest. So I started doing my research, I would say the kind of beginning of 2021. And it led me to the summer of 21. I thought, right, no, I'm actually going to go ahead and have surgery. Just before that, just to go back a little bit, I'd actually put my name forward with my GP to go on the NHS pathway. But unfortunately, as we know, even back then, it would have been years waiting. I thought, with my health, I probably don't have years to go down that pathway. So I then decided to look at, going through the private sector. And then summer 21 is when I decided to actually go ahead and have surgery.
It's private sector in England, or did you go abroad?
I actually came to London. So even though I live in Scotland, I think we'll talk about this a little bit later on, I'm sure. But I think it's really, really important to research your surgeon and have a few consultations. Even the NHS, to be honest, because it's such a big surgery and it's a life-changing surgery, not just physically, but mentally as well. So to research your surgeon, I can't stress that enough, that it's so important that you 100% feel comfortable, or 99%, because you never be 100%, but I'd say 99% at least to feel comfortable with the surgeon that's going to be doing the surgery with you. So I chose to go to a surgeon in London because of his expertise, his reviews, how many, thousands of procedures he's done, but he still caps it at so many per day, etc. So I really thoroughly researched who ultimately was going to be my chosen surgeon.
Fantastic. So in regards to the NHS, did you go through any of the weight management services, or you just decided it was just too long?
So I was on the waiting list, and I thought I'm just going to leave it. And I'm probably a little bit naughty, but I left my name in it for quite some time. And it took me from going to my GP, putting my name forward. I got one letter to say, you're kind of in the queue, so to speak. And it took over a year. By then, I'd already had surgery privately, but it took over a year to even get an acknowledgement that I was on the waiting list. And I thought, it blew my mind, because I thought, this is a disease at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It needs to be dealt with. Yes, I understand the NHS has constraints, and that's not the NHS, because I have been supported by them up to that point. I thought, I don't have years. And they actually said to me, it'd probably be 3 to 4 years. And even then, potentially, you may not even get surgery. And I thought, I don't have that on my side, that time on my side.
That is wild, because then the NHS would have to pay out for your liver condition if that deteriorated.
Yes. I mean, I was at hospital. It was laughable, really. And I look back now, and I'm very much a person of understand where you've come from, understand your history and your journey. But I'm very much, and we'll talk about this, I'm very much a person of where am I today and where do I want to go to? And it's all about what can you change from today and moving forward. So I'm in a much more positive, forward-thinking space. Now, that wasn't before. I would constantly be looking at, it's because of my childhood, because of this, that, and the other, and all the excuses that we kind of look at, and we put barriers in our way. But now, I think over the last couple of years where I've been on this journey, I'm always about forward thinking. Yes, I can acknowledge where I've been, and I'm very, very grateful. But it's a very different space to be in from where I was 2 years ago, to be honest.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like you've done a lot of work, which is brilliant. So when you went to London and you had your procedure done there, I'm always intrigued. What was the aftercare like? Did you have therapy? Did you have a nutrition? What did they offer you?
So it was a 2 years aftercare. Again, that was important to me, because I thought, well, it's all well and good losing the weight, but as I change, I might understand the person that I see in the mirror, and the clothes size, and all the headspace that you need to kind of work through. So for me, I had a 2 years aftercare, and that included them checking my bloods regularly, which I did actually have done at my GP, but then the dietitian and the consultant would check through the results as well. So the dietitian, a psychologist, and I actually had a dietitian's appointment regularly every 3 months, which I thought was phenomenal, because at the end of the day, we kind of get a little bit complacent, even after surgery. Little habits sometimes sneak back in, or maybe not having the right nutrition, all that sort of thing needs to be carefully checked. And I think 2 years for me personally, I think is a minimum aftercare that everyone should be having. It's my honest opinion.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. But sadly, some of us just, we leave the hospital and we never see anybody ever again, sadly. So that was amazing. So it sounds like you did the work, you paid your money, and you got a really good service, which is amazing. So tell us a bit about the work you've done afterwards. So how was settling into your new body, your new life? What's that been like? How's that?
Strange. I always say to people, like, just watch your headspace is my kind of going term. So I had surgery September 21. The first few months, because of my previous health conditions, it kind of impacted my first few months. Even having said that, I don't regret this at all. It's been by far the best decision I've ever made. I started just before surgery, a few months before, so I started journaling. Now, it's not everybody's thing, but when you write things down, it kind of gets it out of your headspace, gets it on paper, and it's actually quite cathartic. And I find it incredibly therapeutic. And now I look back and I actually read back what I wrote 2 years ago. And I thought I was this bubbly, positive, in a happy space person. And when I read back what I wrote 2 years ago, oh my goodness, it is so different from where I am today. So that I found very therapeutic and part of my journey. I would say definitely mindset has been key. Introducing new habits, like, having my dinner at the table, embracing this new body of mine. Yes, ultimately it's not about size and a dress size and numbers on the scale, but it's to really appreciate what your body's been through and where it's taking you from here on in, basically. It's been a bit of a strange space recognizing my new body shape. Even 2 years down the line, I still automatically, weirdly enough, still go to the other end of the rack when I'm buying clothes. So that takes quite a time to catch up. And I mean, I'm still 2 years down the line, and I was a size, I don't mind admitting, I was a size 26, 28, and I'm now in a size 8 to 10, which, I mean, it blows my mind. And it's not about the numbers, it's about the confidence I feel from being able to do that.
Definitely. And I think, but there's nothing wrong with acknowledging for a lot of us, it's been something we've been obsessing and wanting and for so long that there's no shame in actually enjoying if you know, if the number is something that gives you joy and brings you joy, then by all means, you know, enjoy it. You've come a long way, and it's important for us to celebrate, you know, what's happened in the achievement, because I think gratitude is something that's going to help us in the long term.
Yes.
Brilliant. So how does, you know, how has it impacted your relationships, work? How is, you're basically a new person. How does that work?
Yes. So I was in the corporate world before, worked in offices, etc., you know, very good jobs, but it was never my passion. And I always felt I wanted to do something that was like really within me. So everything that was inside that I was feeling before about, you know, being my own boss and helping empower other women, I'm now doing that. So I'm actually a coach, and I'm in the beauty. So I'm in weight management as a coach, which is something I'm obviously very passionate about, but I'm also in the beauty industry as well. So my kind of philosophy is, when you start feeling good about yourself on the inside, you start displaying it on the outside. So it's a kind of double-sided effect, really. And I'm so happy that, well, I'm over the moon that things have changed so dramatically in the last 2 years. I mean, I'm doing a different role. I'm passionate about everything. I have to say, I love the term loving life, and I really am.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's just such a big change. And it's, you know, I must stress, it's not about what's on. I'm never on a diet again, but it's not about what's on the scales. Yes, I do check it probably once or twice a month.
Okay.
It's really not about the scales or the dress size. It's all this confidence that's come from within, and it's oozing out of me, as people say.
Yeah, that is amazing. And it's so important to hold on to that, because sometimes as we leave the honeymoon stage, we're going to have the, you know, it's going to be waves like everything else in life. But I think if you anchor all this happiness and all this and try to bag it somewhere, so when the little bits of bumps you hit along the way, you've got that to come back to. So that sounds brilliant. It sounds like, you know, your life has been transformed in all sorts of aspects.
Yeah, it's actually quite phenomenal. And I mean, I think the main thing for me, yes, the mindset is definitely, I mean, everybody should be working on that every day, to be honest. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect by any means. I still have my moments, but rather than my moments then turn into the bad habits I had before, like going into the kitchen cupboard, going into the fridge and all those sort of things, like, I don't mind now, if it's not always the case, but if I have a moment during the day, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm really stressed, and normally I would have turned to food, I'll now go for a walk, or I'll read a book, or, I mean, it has been known that I'll have a bath in the middle of the day.
Nice.
Which is actually, if anyone works from home, I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
But all those things, and it's all about, I suppose, it's mindset and self-care has been key.
Definitely. And I think, can you imagine telling yourself that 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it would be crazy to you if somebody said to you, all you need to do is do a bit of self-care, read a book. You'd be like, get out of here. Give me the diet. Give me the plan. Give me the shape. And because you're a coach, obviously you've done all the mindset stuff, and now, you know, we can relate, right? But for somebody who has no idea about any of this, and it's been years being on the wagon, off the wagon, with a lot of shame, with a lot of critical inner talking of, you know, why is it always me that can never keep off the £2, the half a pound, whatever it is, that's kind of set, you know, we're set up to fail anyway. If you weigh somebody every single week in a club in front of everybody, and a bit all that shame and all that embarrassment, no wonder we went and ate. We used to go and eat straight after class.
Oh my goodness, yes. And you know, it was so weird because the day before the diet clubs that I used to go to, I'd be like, oh, but I drink more water because then I'll flush it out for the next day, which was just, it's crazy that we think, I mean, it just goes to show how distorted the dieting industry actually is. And actually, I strongly believe now that actually yes, it shouldn't be about the numbers on the scale or the dress size, but actually it's about your health. If your health's deteriorating, then yes, absolutely, you need to do something about it. And that's physically and mentally. And it's not about those numbers. Somebody could be, I'll just use this. Like a rugby player, for instance, scales is going to be heavy, but they're incredibly fit. So it just goes to show how distorted the kind of industry is, really.
Yeah. And BMI, it's, it was basically designed for, God knows how many years ago, but for a white man, and all the differences,
Yes, yeah.
It depends on where you come from, what your body structure is, all sorts of shenanigans. And we were all weighed on one scale, right? Like all of us will be lining up in that one scale. And I would make sure, even if it was freezing, that I would wear a dress because it would make me lighter.
Yes, absolutely. It's all these things. It's just, it is distorted. And yes, I think it's a good tool as a kind of guide, but it's very much a guide, and it doesn't take all those nuances and differences into account, which I think is a huge shame. And sadly, as time goes on, obesity is such a big area now, and it's definitely growing, so to speak, which is sad.
And I don't know, even with the great, we've got all this new medication now, which is, I have nothing against us having a big suite of options, right? Like everybody's different. There's so many of us for different reasons that struggle with obesity. So it's only right that we have so many different treatments, like you would for any other disease, in my eyes. But we can't just have one thing. We can't just prescribe one thing, almost like depression. You can't just prescribe antidepressants and think the person's going to be okay. Actually, it needs to be from a holistic lens.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's the problem. And with obesity rising and childhood obesity rising, how do we move forward and just not set people up for disordered eating of years of yo-yo dieting and, and that also, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Yes. At the end of the day, you struggle so much with your weight and you have low self-esteem. It impacts on your work, in your family, in the relationships that you enter. And, as we know, if you're somebody who struggles with confidence and self-esteem, there's people out there that will smell it out and take advantage of it.
Yes,
so it's huge, right, in the person's life.
Yeah.
So when you say to me, for example, if you say to me, okay, Safi, you eat these things and it will solve all your problems. Come next week, I will weigh you. But we haven't taken into consideration that I'm looking after perhaps a dying mother, or I have a horrible relationship at home, or I've got a stressful work situation going on. None of that is taken into consideration. And now you are reducing or taking away the only thing that really brings me happiness because I've got no other coping mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of conditions, a lot of people with health conditions, a physical health condition, because of obviously the way the body is, of course, like we said, it's holistic. It impacts other things. Like one of my conditions, I have PCOS, which is gynae issues. It's an endocrine issue, but that affects your mental health as well. But it's kind of like they try and fix the PCOS symptoms, but they're not looking at actually that's affecting your mental health as well. And honestly, the term, I laugh about it and it's not laughable at all, but I do laugh about it because it's like, just exercise more and eat less. Really?
Oh God, kill me now. Kill me now.
It's just, I don't know how many times I probably could have millions of encyclopedias of how many times I heard that in my time. I'm like, well, one of my conditions, PCOS, it's incredibly difficult to lose weight with that because of the way the body is. Yes, I've done it now, but it's,
with help, right?
Yeah. With help, yeah. And it's a decision that I've had to make. I didn't have to make it, but I chose to make the decision to have this surgery to try and improve my health. But that was me instigating that.
And you have privilege, the fact that you could afford to go and have that. That's a privilege some people don't have. And I know people who don't even know weight loss surgery is actually an option. And they're just living this life of yo-yo, just going around in circles, trying to, to be told, go to the gym, and they go to the gym and they hurt themselves. And, they've got so many stones to lose. And anybody who listens to this podcast knows I go on about epigenetics quite a lot. Genetics play a big part. So does childhood adversity. Yeah. So does everything that's the trauma that we may have experienced. So food is the first thing that we all can access to soothe our struggles. And I always say that I think I'm in remission. I think food was my addiction. Sugar is my addiction. And like any other addiction, it should be treated. I should be treated like somebody who's recovering or in remission from
I
addiction.
couldn't agree with you more, actually. It's definitely an addiction. I 100% was a food addict and still am, but my coping mechanisms are very different from what I would have done 2 years ago. Yes, physically things have changed. I probably couldn't even try to eat as much as I would have done 2 years ago. But the thing is, I don't actually want, the difference is because of this mindset shift, I actually don't want to. So it's that's been the hugest change for me. And I think the most significant change is that, yes, I can choose to go into the cupboard or go to the shops and get, something particularly unhealthy, but I actually choose not to. So my kind of strategy now is that I'm making a choice to retain my health.
Fantastic. Beautiful reframe.
I think it's so, and I do catch myself sometimes. I actually look and I think it's so bizarre because I actually stare sometimes at food that I would have had 2 years ago, like takeaways or whatever. I actually find myself staring at it thinking, yes, it looks delicious. Yes, it smells fantastic. But do I want it? No, actually, I don't.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's a strange change.
It's amazing. And when I'm working with clients, you could tell me a bit about what you do with regards to your coaching and how you support people. But when I'm supporting my clients, and I'm always in the hope that we all become in tune with our bodies again. And one day our bodies can trust us to feed it when it's hungry, and we can get in touch with our hunger signals and our fullness gauges, because we lost that, right? For so long we didn't listen to it, so we lost it. But I always say to my client, there's a bridge. You can't come from yo-yo dieting and chronic overeating and binging and then go to the other extreme of now my body and I are in tuned beautifully, and he will tell me when to eat and when to stop, and he will tell me what he needs. There's a gap, there's a bridge. We need to rebuild that relationship, a bit like couple therapy. We need to rebuild that, that trust. And I always say to my clients, let's make a plan for the day so we build trust with ourselves. But also, let's, if we really want that cookie, put it in the plan and follow that plan for 24 hours to rebuild that trust. Actually, if you just see it and you fancy it, we'll think, well, it's not going anywhere. I can have it tomorrow, the day after. I will, write it down even somewhere if you want to. It's something you can put in your plan for the next time. Because then we don't demonize food, because diet industry has demonized food so much. That actually sugar is just a thing. It's not a big deal. We shouldn't give it that much power over our lives. So that's what I work towards, is that trust of, actually, I'm feeding myself like somebody I love, like the way I would feed my child. And excessive, biscuits and sugar is not what I need right now, but it's something I can have 2 days time or 3 days time, and something I can look forward to. So what do you do in regards to how do you support people, and what is some of your approaches that you can share with our listeners?
So a lot of times I have that 20 rule. So it's do something, like say you're really craving something and you want to go and have, whatever substance it may be, chocolate cake or whatever. Or say distract yourself for 20 minutes. So do something for 20, either speak to me, which a lot of my clients do actually. They'll give me a ring and we'll have a chat for 20 minutes, go for a walk for 20, whatever it may be. That distraction for 20 minutes, 9 times out of 10, not always the case, but 9 times out of 10, that 20 minutes where you've been active with other things, you might not necessarily want that cake or cookie at the end of that 20 minutes. And the chances are you probably won't, because you've used distraction and you haven't given into that impulse. That 20 minutes is giving you time to kind of reevaluate whether A, you're actually hungry, or whether you just fancy something to fill that void, or it's just that kind of habit. So using that 20 minutes has been actually a really good learning curve, not only just for me, but for my clients as well. And also it's learning to be in tune. And again, this is not learned overnight, but being in tune with whether it's actually hunger signals or whether it's thirst. Because I had to learn, actually, most of the time when I thought I was hungry, I was actually dehydrated and I was really lacking water.
Yeah.
And again, this is all learning. The journaling, I'll come back to that. The journaling has been honestly a complete game changer for me. Writing things down, it doesn't matter what's in my head, writing things down. And I always say to people, don't overthink it. Whatever's coming up for you, just write it down. you'll be surprised what comes out when you're actually writing things down. And a lot of times people don't write anymore. I mean, it's not something that people do. It's all, yes, it's text messages and emails and things. But I said, actually get a pen and paper and write things down. Just that kind of movement of the hand and getting whatever in your head down on paper it's been, honestly, it's been such a game changer for me.
That's what we do in hypnotherapy, is that connected to the subconscious. It's things we're not even consciously aware of. And, just that movement in your body. So it's just brilliant. And that's what you do when we tap into when we having a hypnotherapy session with somebody. That's what we're tapping into. We're getting them so relaxed that's that part. And that's the part that's automatic. And that's the part that's habit forming. That's the loop, isn't it? That, I go here, then I have that, then I have this, then I have that. And that's what we've always done. So that's what we'll always continue to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing was, and again, I speak to my clients about this. It's like, oh, well, I've really got that cake in the kitchen. I've got it in the cupboard or whatever. And I really want it. Well, why have you bought the cake in the first place? Give yourself temptation. And I've learned that. And believe me, I had all sorts of manner of things in my cupboard and my fridge. But it's like, actually, I'm the one that bought it in the first place.
Yeah.
I suppose not to buy it in the first place. Isn't it? Yes, of course, I can get in the car or go to the shop and get it. But that's a hassle, right? Having it there in the first place, well, take that temptation out of the way. Don't have it. And also this thing about labeling bad food. There's nothing such a thing as bad food. It's either healthy or unhealthy. And it's a choice whether you choose to have the unhealthy hot. I mean, I can't stand the word bad food, to be honest. I don't know how many times over the years I've actually heard that, oh, that's a bad food. No, it's an unhealthy food.
It's not criminal.
No, it's not. Exactly.
It's just a food that somebody puts too much stuff in. We've got a problem. The fact that we've solved food famine, and to people from Africa, we know people are still dying of food famine, but now we've got the other extreme where we've got too much processed stuff in our supermarkets.
It's excess, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's our main problem, and that's where obesity, that is the main problem. But with such a big organizations that play such a big, the food industry, the diet industry, the pharmaceutical industry, it's humongous, right? So, but I do think taking back that power about the fact that actually it's only food. It's not a big deal. That gives you more power back in the sense that I'm not a cookie can't drive me. So fantastic. That sounds great. And it sounds very much like what we do. And I think it's really needed to have people who support people who've gone through that step, so who've lived that life, who've got lived experience. So what made you want to, did you try to find somebody to support you? And what was the motivating factor in going back and retraining and becoming a coach?
I was always interested in coaching. I mean, I did counselling years ago, but I found it was very much, and this is just my personal, I found it was very much stuck in the past and dragging up things from years ago. Yes, of course, I'm aware that everyone has a background and childhood, and some people, do have horrific things happen. And I get that and I recognize it. But staying in that loop for me was quite a negative space. So I found by looking into the coaching avenue was all about, like I said earlier, where am I today? I can impact today and what is going to happen in the future. I can't change the past. I can acknowledge it, appreciate it, understand, the lessons I may have learned through it, but I can't change that. So I'm very much now about, where am I today? Where can I move forward to, and empowering you to make change and transformation. And I always say, I'm not done. I'm still learning. I'm still on this transformative journey. Can I be a better person? Of course. Can I be a stronger person? Of course. There's always room for improvement. And I'm very much in that space for myself and my clients. And I think that's why the coaching I was attracted to, because it's very much about you're still learning, you're still evolving. And yes, there's very much, you can always become a better version of yourself. So I firmly believe that. And I think that's quite empowering for clients as well. And in turn, me helping them helps me. So I find, being in that kind of arena is just, I mean, it's a double whammy, so to speak. It's a win-win for my clients and for myself.
Definitely. And I think, where wounded healers, right? Your mess becomes your message. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And I just think you do, when you've been through it, that's where you make the best, you support people the best, because you really have that deep empathy and understanding, not sympathy, remember empathy, we walk beside them rather than sit in the puddle with them, but be that person who can kind of lift them up. And somebody who's doing, training as a counselor also, is the fact that I think they both got their place. And it's important for somebody who's never really thought about, why did I turn to food in the first place, to kind of do some of that exploratory, that bit of investigating, learning a bit about themselves and what has happened, and, why do you do what you do when you know what you know. And then coaching is the next step of, how do we move forward now? How do we plan? How do we get ourselves from that place? So I think it's they're both equally needed in different aspects and different parts of the journey. But it's beautiful to have that, because I couldn't find anybody who specialized in bariatric surgery, rather, whether it was coaching or even, as a therapist, I couldn't find anybody when I was first looking for it. So it's brilliant that,
changed, isn't it?
I think the reality is we're behind. Like, let's say America and Australia and so on in the bariatric community. I don't know if you see that we're behind, even just within the community aspect of it.
I think so. I think there's a lot of people thinking they're specialists and professionals, but it's a layman. It's not somebody and again, that's probably quite a dangerous place as well. They're not necessarily qualified to help people. And there's some pretty diverse information out there, to be honest. And I think, yes, I do agree with you. I think when you look at like the likes of the States, which is the forefront of the bariatric arena, I think we are very much behind. I think we've progressed. I mean, even in the last couple of years, to be honest, I think we've progressed and come on leaps and bounds. But I think in the last couple of years, I've really noticed a significant change of actually, this isn't going away. This is, unfortunately, the obesity crisis is growing, and there needs to be more help. And I think we're more aware of that now. And I think there is more help there. But yes, we're still very much in the early stages, very much so.
And I agree. And I know what you mean about the fact that, especially if you spend too much time on some of the groups, some of the advice is like basically dangerous.
Yes, very much so. And again, it's like, I think it's a personal choice. People that have gone abroad, and I'm not knocking it, because there's some amazing surgeons abroad as well. However, going abroad, you're not going to have the same level of aftercare as you do in the country whatever country you're in, having the surgery. You're based there. Naturally, you're going to get better support. So I think, yeah, it goes back to, choosing your surgeon, choosing the right path for you, having the support, because it's not just a case of getting the surgery and that's you done. It's very much, it's a journey. And here I am 2 years down the line and I'm still learning. there's still things that I don't get 100% right. And every day's a learning day, as I say.
Definitely. It's almost, when you have a baby, I don't know if you've had children, the labor bit is just, it's by, if we really measure it against all the years you have to be a parent, 24 hours or 48 hours, that's just an event. But the rest, everything else depends on all the years of parenting, how that child will turn out. So I do think, the operation is great and the surgeon is the big event, hallelujah, it's done. But after that, I always say, we lose 80% of our stomach, but what have we done to our head?
Yes. And that's another important factor, because I have people that then had surgery and then within days or a week, it's like, and I get it, I understand a bit, but it's like, oh my God, I don't want to eat food. Am I ever going to eat again? And that's quite a weird headspace to be in, because what you would have relied on before has gone, especially in the early days where you really don't want to eat. You're healing and all that sort of thing. But because of the chemical differences in your body, you don't actually feel like you want to eat or go and stuff your face or whatever the case may be. So that's quite a weird headspace to be in. And I think at that point, you really need support, because what you would have turned to before, in effect, has been taken away. And it's like, what do I do instead to have that kind of crux or support there?
Yeah. And then
it's in place, isn't it? Having that kind of, it is support that you need after the procedure, to be honest.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And then that's when transference addiction creeps in otherwise, isn't it? That dangerous spot, because you've lost your coping. What do you replace it with? And especially because you're so conditioned to think, that actually it's almost too simple. Sorry, it's almost too simple. If we say to clients, just journal, let's talk, let's, to them it's not, they're so radicalized in dieting culture that it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, they need you to give them it's not strict enough, right? It's not hard enough. It's not, we're not whipping the whip thingy.
That's so true. That is, I mean, one of the other, and I always like to put in little tips but for instance, somebody said to me, like, where do you have your dinner? I'm like, well, on the sofa in front of the TV. And they're like, try eating at the dinner. I said, I haven't eaten at the dinner table for like years. Yes, we did as children because you couldn't leave the table until you ate your dinner and all this kind of thing. But somebody said that to me and I was like, right, okay. And it kind of annoyed me a little bit. I was like, don't tell me to eat at my dinner table. I like to eat on the sofa. Anyway, I started doing it. Oh my goodness, the difference.
Yeah.
Slow down my eating. I don't eat as much. Even now, 2 years down the line, the difference just by doing that one little thing of having my dinner at the table and actually having it a quality time with the family, that has been also game changing for me. And it's just, I'll be honest, I did think it was an absolute nonsense, but that little step of it, and I definitely now, yes, of course, I dish up smaller portions, but even now, I don't necessarily eat everything that's on my plate, even though I'm having smaller portions. And that's because everything's slowed down. I'm having a conversation. There's no background noise for the TV, and it's kind of quality time. So little tips like that, whilst I thought it was an absolute nonsense at the time, I've now instilled it, and I'm like, I actually pass this on to, and I hear people's, and it's funny because people say, my clients say to me, I just say, look, try it before the surgery, see what you think, and see how much slower you eat, because you'd be surprised at how fast generally people do eat. And that's probably why we overeat as well. That's another, impact. But I have people saying, oh my God, you're absolutely right. Like, I never realized just by moving where you're having your dinner makes such a big difference.
Wild, isn't it? And
it's wild.
When you put yourself in those shoes, you're like, yeah, actually, I would have just nodded at you and been like, she's crazy.
Yes,
well, let me go on Pinterest. Find another. Must be something else out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's all these little tips that I haven't made them up, but things that were kind of said to me, and I started to put them in. I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. And with surgery, yes, of course, you have the, don't drink at the same time as you're eating because you can't physically get it in. But I would never have thought of that before. I was like, if I want a sip of water with my meal, I would have done that. But just by doing it now, and again, that's another tip that will differentiate between whether you're actually thirsty or whether you're hungry. And you'll still do that years down the line after surgery. So, that doesn't change. But it's just been, I think it's becoming more aware of the habits we have, making new positive habits. And really, it's a transformation, and it is a journey. It's not an overnight fix, but it's quite exciting having this new lease of life, to be honest.
I think you become a whole new person, don't you?
You do, yeah. Brilliant. And it's because I have people that, and it's so funny because I don't always I'm trying to change of having my comparison. I'm still doing it, to be fair, but I'm trying to avoid the comparison photos because, yes, I have drastically changed. There's no doubt about it. Visibly, I'm half the person than I was before. But I'm not that person that I was before physically or mentally. I've grown and I'm a very different person. I'm going to have a tangent. I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. So somebody contacted me from 30 odd years ago because they'd seen this post and they went, oh my God, Nadia, like, we can't believe you're this different person, you're loving life, etc. And I thought, but on the surface years ago, it would have been visible to people that I perhaps was loving life. Deep down, I wasn't. But now, all these years later, they're saying, oh, but it's absolutely oozing out of you. Yeah. But I don't think I understood before that. I'm not the same. I'm more confident. I definitely chat more. That's for sure. I think that's probably coming across for this.
I don't know if you could blame that on we just chat boxes beforehand. Yeah, no, definitely. I just think it's a sense of freedom, and I've lost the most from my head. I think the mass, and it's gone. I think the limitations, the limiting beliefs, that critical story that I have held about so many different aspects of my life, of what I could do and who I am and what I could achieve, that's been lifted. And I feel
So freeing, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wish I could give that to everybody that I see post on their first part of their journey, is that excited buzz about, I got my date. And
Oh,
I wish, and I do think the NHS needs to figure out a way of getting people more, making this less. Okay, so I think it's the medical model, so it's all about the dietitians and numbers, and how do we get away from that a bit and make it a bit more holistic and a bit more community focused, and telling the individual, actually, you're not just going to lose weight, but you're going to gain so much more.
yes, yeah. And I think you also, and it's funny because, yes, as I said, on the surface, I was this outgoing person and I really wasn't inside, but I'm definitely putting myself forward for more things. And I think, sadly, I think as the world has evolved since COVID, a lot of everything's online. People are, they kind of used to things. I mean, podcasts are online at the end of the day. But I do like the kind of personal, like actually seeing people in person, which I think is now coming back again. But had you asked me to do that 2 years ago, absolutely not. I would have hidden behind a screen and definitely wouldn't have gone to meet people, to be honest. Whereas now there's a nice balance, I would say. I would say, yes, a lot of it's online because that's the way the world is and people are busy, but also I very much put myself forward to seeing people face to face now as well, which I wouldn't have done before.
It's brilliant, isn't it? I have one of my clients, they will know if they're listening, but the client had a milestone birthday and they didn't want to do anything. And it broke my heart, really, to be honest. And it's just things like that. The amount of holidays that I missed out on, the amount of nights out that I missed out on, the celebrations that I missed out on, purely because I was going to do it when I was slimmer.
Yes, yeah. It's that kind of halting your life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even, I mean, it's funny. So I think it was 2 weeks ago, I went to an event and I was all excited about, getting a nice dress and getting dressed up and all the rest of it. Nothing, I mean, yes, it was lovely that I could get this dress on, but it was about the feeling behind it. I wasn't stressing about what I was wearing. I wasn't necessarily stressing about my makeup and all those things, but I was actually so looking forward to being there and being in that environment with lots of people. But the funny thing was, now this is probably size related, I was on the plane and obviously back in the day, I wouldn't have got the seatbelt on. I certainly wouldn't have got the table down at all. I would have had to hold the drink in the flight and all the rest of it. But I actually sat there with the belt, had a massive bit left over, and I took a photo and the person next to me said, well, actually, they looked at me and I just naturally, and probably in the past I would have just kept quiet, but I actually turned around and said, oh, there's a reason I'm taking the photo. And then kind of just gave a brief overview. And they were so astounded. So we spent the whole flight talking about kind of how weight impacts you and you don't realise. And granted, just simple things like being able to put the seatbelt on and not having to ask for an extension lead. And I think I was so mind blown. It wasn't the amount of seatbelt that was it was just the fact that I didn't have to ask and it was just normal.
Yeah. I get to the toilet as well. I used to have to deliberate. How many people am I going to, put my bum on if I have to maneuver myself through that tight aisle to get to the toilet? Oh, God.
I mean, in some respects, I do think society, again, I think this is my opinion, but I do think society need to cater for people that are bigger, like chairs and that sort of thing, I think need to be stronger. I mean, how embarrassing that somebody who is carrying extra weight, they go into a restaurant or somewhere and they have that fear of the chair collapsing underneath them.
Yeah, it's humiliation, isn't it? It's not fair. We've got to acknowledge people are living larger bodies, struggle with obesity. So how can we make their lives, how do we not add to it, right? How do we not add to the flaming trauma of already being not accepted by society, being classed already? Weight stigma is probably one of the last stigmas that's allowed to just, people can still joke about your weight. People can still, people don't get jobs because of their weight.
Yeah.
If somebody was bantering about my colour, that everybody else in the room would probably have a problem with that. Yes. But if somebody was talking about my backside, then, they would just giggle.
Not right, is it? I mean, that definitely is, but I think that's going to be, like we said, I think it's the last group of people that it's going to have an impact on, because I think it's certainly not going away, and it's how we try to change the narrative. I'm part of another thing that I put myself forward for. I'm part of obesity panels, which I'm so pleased with. And they are trying to change the narrative of, number one, the support that people get through this journey, but also change the narrative of, like in restaurants, having restaurants that cater for people that are larger.
Yeah.
It's like people with alcoholism. There's place now you can get zero alcohol or low alcohol drinks. It's the same kind of thing, but it's just a different disease, if you like. So they cater for that part of society, but they still to this day don't cater for people that live with obesity, I don't think.
Because it pays a lot of money for the narrative that we are just greedy, gluttonous, too lazy.
Yes.
And it's a very much placed as a individual responsibility. Yes. Rather than it's an illness which is very complex with loads of complex reasons, which we'll be here for hours and hours and hours if we decided to discuss every single aspect of it.
True, that is true.
Yeah, but it's amazing. It's lovely to have chats with people like you, because I think if I was somebody, in 2014 or 15 rolling in, wanting to think about weight loss surgery and heard this kind of conversations, and that's why I do the podcast, it would have been, the journey would have been so much less slowly, I think, if that's the correct way to say it. So amazing. You keep on doing the good work. And if people want to connect with you, where could we connect with you?
The best place is on my Instagram. So I'm at Nadia Marie Lifestyle. So it's NADIA MARIE Lifestyle.
I'll put it under the bits down below the episode. Fantastic. Is there anything else you want to add, Nadia, before we let you go? Anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've loved speaking to you. Thank you so much for inviting me on here. I've loved talking about my journey, but also it's actually not about me. It's about, even if this touches one person and they want to reach out, I'm here for them as well as much as you are. So thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time out to record with me and sharing everything that you do, and just keep up the good work. I look forward to following you. I will put your Instagram handle below. If there's anything else you want me to add so that people can find it, you let me know. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day. I appreciate you for being here with me. I hope you got some value from this episode. If so, please give me a review. It will make me super happy and support others from our community to find the podcast. Share it with your Barry bestie. Connect with me on Instagram at Gastric Mindset. It'll be wonderful to hear from you.